Hello everyone. This is another story about a trainee who thinks they deserve special treatment. I'm a 20-year-old female lead trainer and server at a nice steak restaurant. One of my trainees, named Karen, was 22 years old and had no experience at all. That's okay, I'm happy to teach her. At first, Karen was great, but she needed to improve her customer service skills. She followed me around on her first day to learn, which is our training process. As her trainer, I had to stay close to her and guide her. But Karen didn't like that. By her third shift, Karen was starting to take on some responsibilities, and I was giving her gentle feedback to help her improve. I had explained that I needed to stay with her at all times, except for when she used the restroom, and she got defensive. She basically said, "I've got this. It's easy, just leave me alone," and walked away. I found Karen again and gently explained why I needed to stay with her. She rolled her eyes and went to the bathroom. While she was gone, I checked in with a table I had been serving and asked if they had any feedback about Karen. They told me she was really rude to us when you weren't around, and our food took a long time to arrive. I apologized and let them know I would take over their service from now on. When Karen came out of the bathroom, I talked to her about what the table had told me. She blamed others for the problems, saying, "It's not my fault that other servers didn't bring out my food, and it's not my fault that the table didn't know what they wanted." I told her, "That's not true, Karen. Our training specifically teaches us to suggest dishes to customers. And remember, you were just standing around in the kitchen doing nothing when your food was ready to be served. You could have asked me for help since I was right there with you, but instead, you chose to walk away." This kind of thing kept happening for the rest of the night. At the end of her third shift, I decided to send Karen home. I was worried that I would get in trouble for not staying close enough to her, so I spoke with my boss about what had happened. My boss was shocked and said, "That's crazy. We decided that I would start training a new person and Karen would have to pass her audit on her own." Later, another trainer told me that Karen was difficult to work with and would often speak negatively about me when I wasn't around. I didn't let it bother me, figuring it was no longer my problem. That was until her audit was scheduled, and I knew I'd have to deal with her again. I think Karen forgot that I had warned her that I would be conducting her audit with a manager, since I work most shifts 5 days a week. And, as luck would have it, her audit was scheduled for one of my shifts. I make sure to run audits fairly, without bias, and only focus on whether they've met the required standards they learned in training. During the audit, Karen had to treat us like real customers, but she struggled and made mistake after mistake, so I had to keep deducting points. After it was over, I discussed her performance with my manager and shared my frustrating experience training her. My manager's response was simple and clear: absolutely not. They didn't think she was worth keeping on. After the audit, my manager and I spoke with Karen together. We told her she could retake the audit if she studied harder, but if she failed again, she would be let go. Instead of taking responsibility, Karen blamed me for poor training. So, I asked my manager to review the security footage and invited my other trainer to join us. We showed Karen that her accusations were unfounded and her excuses were shut down. In the end, Karen didn't work out and was let go. In the end, I realized that semi-fine dining and fine dining aren't the right fit for everyone. I had tried to be patient and gentle during her training, but maybe Karen would thrive better in a more casual restaurant setting. I had done my best to prepare her, but some people just aren't receptive to learning and growth. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth.
Story 2.
My aunt, who I haven't spoken to much in the past 20 years, asked my sister and me to use the money we inherited to buy her a house. I recently spent a holiday with my aunt, which I only did so I could spend time with my cousin. Being around her again brought up old frustrations about something she did a few years ago that still bothers me. In 2020, my mom passed away, leaving my sister and me a large inheritance from our grandfather's estate. This was enough money for us to buy a house. Our dad handled the tax details for us. We offered him a third of the inheritance to help him, but he refused, saying he didn't want any of the money. My Aunt Rachel, who I went on holiday with, is a strong believer in socialism. My other aunt, Tilly, has been living a hippie lifestyle for many years. Both are in their 60s and are my dad's sisters. They didn't save much money because of their lifestyle choices, but they're grown adults and need to deal with the results of those choices. A year or two after my mom's passing, my Aunt Tilly had a crisis. Her rent went up, and she was worried about being able to pay for her place. I don't know all the details, but it was a tough time for her. What I do know is that Rachel contacted my dad, not my sister or me, with an idea. She suggested that we use the inheritance we got from our mom's dad, our grandfather, to buy a house for Tilly. Then, Tilly would leave the house to us in her will. This means I'd have to wait until I'm middle-aged to use my own inheritance to buy a house. And all this is coming from someone we've hardly spoken to in 20 years. I was shocked and amazed by Rachel's suggestion. It made the holiday even more frustrating because I'm sure they're trying to get closer to us because of our inheritance. Their audacity was stunning. Rachel's behavior on the holiday was also really irritating. She asked super personal questions like, were you close with your mom? She also threw childish tantrums when we were late to things she wanted to do. It even caused my sister and me to argue. So, we've decided never to go on holiday with her again, 100% never.
Story 3.
People, it's time for another story about my travels. I was flying to and from Costa Rica, and I saw some crazy entitled behavior. Flying used to be a special treat, but now it's just like taking a bus in the air. I saw a lot of entitled behavior, but one incident really stood out. On my recent 4-hour international flight home, I had already booked a business class seat for more comfort. When I went to pre-board, the gate agent surprised me by saying she had moved me to an even better seat. I thought, great, thanks, as I was wheeled onto the plane in my wheelchair. I found out I was now sitting in first class. I was thrilled, as I love first class but usually can't afford it. As I settled into my first class seat, I noticed another person in a wheelchair pre-boarding just in front of me. She had made a big show of getting on the plane, crying, whining, and yelling. I thought she might be overreacting since she only had a basic knee brace, no crutches or cane, and no sign of a serious medical issue. But hey, people can be as quirky as they want, right? When regular boarding began, I met my seatmate, a man with a impressive chestnut-colored man bun and a large beard. He wore old shorts and a stained t-shirt. I had noticed people in the airport waiting room giving him a wide berth and unfriendly looks, likely because of his appearance. They seemed to be avoiding him, but I was curious about his story. And then, surprisingly, he sat down right next to me, just behind the woman who had been yelling about her knee. As we settled in, we started chatting over a glass of wine. I discovered he was a retired federal employee and military veteran, just like my husband. He was traveling the world with just a backpack, visiting places that caught his interest. We had a great conversation, laughing and talking at a normal volume, not loud at all. We'd only been flying for about 30 minutes when Knee Lady started yelling for the flight attendants to move us because, in her words, we were dirty hippies who didn't belong in first class. The gentleman and I looked at each other and burst out laughing. We're both over 60, and while he was dressed casually, he was clean and well-groomed. I was wearing a linen tunic, black pants, and Birkenstocks, an outfit my kids tease me about, saying I look like a yoga instructor from Connecticut. It's a bit bohemian, but also suburban and upper class. Fortunately, the flight attendant was level-headed and told Knee Lady that we wouldn't be moving anywhere. She offered to ask us to keep our voices down if that would help Knee Lady. We both smiled at the attendant and agreed to be quieter, no need for her to even ask. After that, we enjoyed our lunch and then took a nap. When we landed in Costa Rica, I witnessed a moment. Yelling Knee Lady miraculously regained her ability to walk without much difficulty as soon as her suitcase arrived. I couldn't help but laugh as the airport staff helped me into my car. I feel so sorry for everyone who has to deal with people like her.